Hi, welcome to CO300 Writing Arguments. I'm your instructor. On all the official documentation, you're going to see Michael Todd around the office. A lot of my friends call me Mika. We're going to get started today. I'm going to switch over to a PowerPoint presentation, walk you guys through a couple of things to introduce the course. So, part one, getting to know you, or first, getting to know me. This is me. I think I was probably about 6 years old. Please note the impressively large chipmunk cheeks here. I guess maybe not a ton has changed. I can't really tell. So when I was in college, I studied sculpture and extended media. I have a MFA from CSU in creative nonfiction writing. I have 7 years of teaching experience across several disciplines: composition and rhetoric, creative writing, English as a foreign language, and then some miscellaneous theater stuff related to my sculpture background, set properties, etc. I've got 2 years teaching in online environments. My favorite book is The Song of Achilles, if anyone is a fan of very wonderfully composed historical nonfiction. Nonfiction? No, fan fiction. Anyway, we're gonna keep moving. And I speak conversational Spanish, specifically Castilian or Castellano, and I'm a horror movie lover. So, just a little bit about me, since you may not necessarily see my face as often as if this were an in-person class. So, getting to know you peer facing, typically in this class on the first day, or most days, most first days of most of my classes, I do some low stakes mingling activities, nothing that's going to put you like on the spot in the middle of the classroom in front of everyone. But obviously, in an online course, especially asynchronous, the student interaction is going to be a little bit different and is going to be limited by our particular circumstances, both in the nature of the course and in what we as individuals have. In this class, however, you will be asked to share some of your writing, your research, your thoughts, reflections with each other. If this goes according to plan, this should mostly be small groups, discussion boards. But given that you will be reading and commenting on each other's work, it might be nice to kind of have a sense of who's behind those words. So for this assignment, it will be a discussion post. You can share as much or as little about yourself as you would like in whatever format. This could be a chance for you to play with genre and or multimodality. So it could be a bio, it could be a letter, voice memo, a video. No pressure though, but as long as you're sort of exploring a higher level class in composition, you're welcome to play when you see the opportunities. I give you this space to introduce yourself and open some lines of communication, also because I believe in the power of community and the idea that screens and asynchronicity don't have to keep us from that. So, part two, composition, rhetoric, and CO300. Composition, rhetoric, writing. Oh my, like, what are these things we're being asked to do? Sorry, I'm dramatic. So what do these words mean to you? It's a little corny, but if you would humor me, I'd like you to pause the video and reflect for a moment. This can be on sort of what you already sort of think or know. You can do a quick Google search, but just, what do these words mean to you now coming into CO300? So composition, we can say the way things are arranged, the parts, substances, components, etc., that something is made of, the action of combining parts or elements to form a whole. And then for rhetoric, we have the study of writing or speaking as a means of communication or persuasion, a type or mode of language or speech or writing intended to be effective and influence people. And one of my favorite definitions from the San Diego State University: rhetoric refers to the study and uses of written, spoken, and visual language. It investigates how language is used to organize and maintain social groups, construct meanings and identities, coordinate behavior, mediate power, produce change, and create knowledge. Excuse me. And just a side note, these definitions are from Merriam-Webster. CO300 follows CO150, so naturally CO300 is going to seek to build upon what you learned in CO150, or a comparable class if you test it out, etc. Right? So essentially, how are we going to build on the foundation you're coming in with? Seems kind of right, obvious or logical at least. So we're going to be covering the information on the next two slides. As you'll see, the graph here is a little small to read. But you may notice at a glance, right, if we have deep in rhetorical knowledge, deep in experience in writing, these stay the same, except deepen becomes extend. So I'm not going to force you to watch me go through and read every single criteria um, from CO150 because that would be really painful for literally everyone involved. What we are going to do is use the first criteria as a means of comparison. We'll look at CO300 on the next slide. And the infographic from the previous slide is going to be available on Canvas as well as this PowerPoint. So you'll have a chance to look at these all in more depth. But CO150 content criteria deepen rhetorical knowledge, which includes focusing on the rhetorical situation, audience, and purpose, using voice, tone, format, and structure appropriately, depending on your understanding of relationships between form and content in writing. Write and read texts written in several genres for specified discourse communities. These communities may include professional or disciplinary discourse communities. So if we look at CO300 by comparison, we have extend rhetorical knowledge. Use texts from rhetoric, discourse studies, communication, or related disciplines to extend understanding of rhetorical concepts to the discipline that is the focus of the course. Develop sophisticated strategies for critical analysis of disciplinary or specialized discourse. Learn more sophisticated ways to communicate knowledge to the appropriate audiences. Apply reflective strategies to the synthesis, communication, and creation of knowledge. Right, so hopefully we're seeing some overlap here, some relationships that exist. So going into it, we're just looking to push you at whatever point you're at. Let's skip all these. Ba, 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 ba. So 3, course theme. Technically, all CO150. This is going to happen a lot, I swear. CO150, CO300. All CO300 classes are technically writing arguments. However, we as instructors have some creative freedom, some creative license in how we design the course, what we include. Does anyone know these lyrics? Truth, dare, spin, bottles. You know how to ball. I know Aristotle. I'm sorry if I'm being annoying. I'm sorry if you hate this reference, but it has a point, I promise, right? So Taylor Swift, Aristotle. Who was Aristotle? What makes him worth like referencing, name dropping? Why is Taylor Swift including him in her songs? Let's take a look. So Aristotle was a Greek philosopher who lived over 2,000 years ago. He did a lot of important things to several disciplines, not the least of which the classification system, biological classification system. So kingdom, class, family, phylum, etc., not improved upon for centuries, right? But more important to CO300 is that Aristotle was a key figure in Western rhetoric. We could spend a whole semester talking about Aristotle and just sort of like his perspective. But what I'll say about him right now does include just another little bit of foundation, right? So we had Aristotle, but before that, there was Plato, student of Socrates. So reportedly, Socrates didn't think that writing was going to be very helpful to humankind. And I say reportedly because, true to that idea, Socrates didn't write down any of his teachings. Most of that is attributed to his student, Plato. In his work Phaedrus, I believe, I hope, Plato, again a student of Socrates, who knew him up until his death, Plato tells a story in which Socrates in turn tells another story about when the Greek god Thoth invents and presents writing to the pharaoh Thamus. Thoth claims writing, quote, is a branch of learning that will make the people of Egypt wiser and improve their memories, end quote. But Thamus reports that, quote, if men learn this, it will implant forgetfulness in their souls. They will cease to exercise memory because they rely on that which is written, calling things to remembrance no longer from within themselves, but by means of external marks. He continues, quote, what you have discovered is a recipe not for memory, but for reminder. And it is no, excuse me, and it is no true wisdom that you offer your discipline to your disciples. Let me start over. And it is no true wisdom that you offer your disciples, but only the semblance of wisdom. For by telling them of many things without teaching them, you will make them seem to know much, while for the most part they know nothing. And as men filled not with wisdom, but with the conceit of wisdom, they will be a burden to their fellows. Anyone else think that's a little presumptuous to say to a god, even if you are like a king? So I feel like there's a little power imbalance there. Essentially, Plato is mimicking Socrates in this story as a way of conveying what his teacher's stance would be. But what does that have to do with Aristotle? Well, to an extent, Aristotle agreed. In his in his work titled Rhetoric, Aristotle acknowledges writing as a powerful and valid tool, but emphasizes spoken word as superior because it allows us to engage with the audience and adapt to them in real time. The point being that at one time, some of the most influential thinkers in Western philosophy and those related to rhetoric outright rejected writing because they thought it was going to do more harm than good. For the most part, that hasn't been the case. People have rejected new technologies again and again. And a little side note, for another example, Eulabis has an amazing essay on the racist history of telephone poles. It's called Time and Distance Overcome. I'll try to remember to put it in the supplemental materials on Canvas. But point being, even as we resist technologies, time and again, we have adapted. And some of you maybe have guessed by now where this is going, because we are similarly on the cusp of another new technology that has the potential to completely alter our daily lives moving forward. Artificial intelligence, or AI. And like the written word, we know AI isn't going anywhere. And because AI isn't going anywhere, we can't really run away from it. So in this class, I'd like to try embracing it. Yeah, we are going to try to use AI, and we're going to consider if AI has a place in the writing classroom. And if that answer is yes, in what contexts and at what steps in the writing process? Right? Is it really great all the way through, just at the beginning, just at the end, right? As we're generating, as we're drafting, as we're revising, what does it look like for us? Because no matter your stance on AI, there's a difference between what the advertisements and news outlets can show and tell us versus what we can actually do with the technology as kind of the average person at our computers, right? And there's some really polarizing examples, right? Recently, there was a brief moment where explicit deep fake pornography of Taylor Swift was circulating, but how many of us can actually do that? Like know which services, which software, whatever it is, like right. So like I know I can't. I'm not sure if you can. So, more importantly is like, what can we do? What can we do in the context of this class? And how do we know if what we're producing is good? Um, would we stand by what AI generated? Would we say, yes, I have read this, I've analyzed it, I understand it, I agree with it, and I would let this stand as an example or demonstration of my knowledge? Right, so these are some of these guiding questions, like if AI has a place in the classroom, how? But before we talk about AI, I think it's really important that we ground our exploration of this evolving technology in genuine interest, and not just the interest in AI itself, if you are similarly interested in the way that I am. Um, However, I'm aiming to, you can see, look at my notes. I'm more aiming to give you guys certain tools, right? Things that you can be using both in this classroom and other classes, in other parts of your life, right? Like in working, interpersonal relationships. So if I'm giving you a toolbox of skills for different situations, it could be a little, right? Could be a little difficult, could be new. But I want you to care about what you're doing, basically. So, part four is curiosity. Have you ever found yourself in front of a screen, streaming platform before you, scrolling or searching for something to watch? Maybe you're someone who does that at bookstores, record stores, right? Looking for something new. I did that quite recently myself. These next three slides are films that I considered watching recently. The first being Naiad. So, athlete Diana Naiad sets out at 60 to achieve a nearly impossible lifelong dream to swim from Cuba to Florida across more than 100 miles of open ocean. And mind you, this is nonstop. Like she doesn't stop the 100 miles. She keeps going the whole time. You might you might be able to tell that I watched it. The second option was Good Grief. An artist grieving the loss of his famous writer husband takes his two best friends on a trip to Paris, where they unpack messy secrets and hard truths. Movie three, May December. Decades after their scandalous relationship made headlines, a couple starts to unravel when a famous actor arrives to research them for her new film. A 2019 poll found that, quote, on a day-to-day basis, the average adult watches TV for 3.5 hours, amounting to 1,248 hours each year. So that's 52 days of the 365 in one year, over 1 month out of the 12. According to a 2023 article in Forbes, spending over 1 hour collectively on social media a day could amount to more than 3 years of your life, assuming that you live to be at least 80 years old. I'm going to put aside the statistics and just sort of say, right, we spend a lot of time consuming media and we have so many options: TikTok, movies, books, TV shows. So, why do we consume the media that we consume? For example, when you're choosing a film, we might choose partially based on familiarity, such as an actor or genre we like. Right? Love Dan Levy, Good Grief. Haven't seen it yet, but I'm keen. Or we might choose based on the summary, blurb of the film. This could also be to some degree familiar, right? These sort of narratives that reoccur. Backpacking teenager gets kidnapped, woman returns home to small town and finds love with high school sweetheart, etc., etc. Maybe, though, we choose a movie because we have no idea what it could be about, or what the blurb says catches our attention, so on and so forth. If we choose a movie not because we know what the plot is, but because of what we don't know, what we want to know, how could we describe that with one word? Ba-ba-da-ba. Curiosity. But what is curiosity? So this is another one of those cheesy moments where I'm going to ask you to pause for a moment and see if you can come up with your own definition. Now, do a quick Google search or visit your favorite dictionary if you have one, and compare those definitions, yours and the outside sources. How did they compare? According to Merriam-Webster, curiosity is the, quote, desire to know, interest leading to inquiry, end quote. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, curiosity is, similarly, the desire or inclination to know or learn about anything, especially what is novel or strange, a feeling of interest leading one to inquire about anything. Each of these terms addressed inquiry. What is inquiry? One more moment of stopping and reflecting on what you think this might mean. And then another moment of comparing with a dictionary. Similarities, differences, anything get clarified? Merriam-Webster, again, inquiry is the action of seeking, especially for truth, knowledge, or information concerning something. Search, research, investigation, examination. The action of asking or questioning, interrogation. That's from Oxford English Dictionary. So major assignment 1, curiosity journals. Take a moment to consider the 3 terms that we've looked at. Right? We've got curiosity, composition, and rhetoric. So in a class like CO300, why might I ask you to center an assignment around curiosity? I'm going to give you guys the terms for some reflection. So here's rhetoric again, composition, and curiosity. So this would be another moment to just pause and sort of reflect on the connection between these. Right, this is gonna kind of give you a why, hopefully. I love pretending like you're like pausing, like I'm waiting for you to pause, leaving the pause moment in the video. It's fine. According to a 2015 study available through the National Center for Biotechnology Information, curiosity is a motivator for learning, influential in decision making, and crucial for healthy development. So, in a few words, I want you to care about what you're working on in this class, right? I essentially have said that. But important to connect, later in the course, we will write an academic argument, which is going to involve inquiry, that action of seeking. So before we dive into inquiry, it helps to have something to seek or question or interrogate. So beginning with curiosity is kind of our first step towards that academic argument later in the semester. The purpose of the Curiosity Journal is to be curious, to explore, and then to reflect and ask, what do I think? What have I learned? What more might I want to know? And maybe those answers are going to lead you to your academic argument topic. This is my hope, at least.
There will be 3 total Curiosity journals, each due 1 week apart, each on Sundays. And those dates are September 1st, September 8th, and September 15th. But no worries, this is all going to be on Canvas. Just so you know, here are a few of the basics. Each journal will prompt you to summarize the source. Each journal will prompt you to reflect on rhetorical elements such as author and audience. As part of this, you'll be asked to do a little bit of lateral reading, as in looking at other sources for confirmation of what your source is providing for you. Each journal will prompt you to reflect on your response to the source. And each journal will prompt you to brainstorm things this source makes you curious about. Perhaps you watch a film and want to see more by the same director. Perhaps from that film, you wonder, is this historically accurate? Perhaps you watch a TikTok where a woman recommends spraying yourself with cinnamon to keep away mosquitoes and think, does that actually work? Spoiler, hasn't worked for me. And each journal will prompt you to provide MLA citations for both the original source and any outside sources consulted. Again, you can find all of these assignments
Thank
and the
you all
instructions
so very
on Canvas.
much for your attention. I know that this has been a little bit of a longer video. I don't think they're all going to be this long, so don't worry. It's just the beginning. But I'm really looking forward to working with you this semester.